doing this again. Am I not sharing a screen? There it is. There's the screen. And leave that screen there that I'm going to share. And yeah, now I'll get back to work so I can start trying to. All right, so I am once again playing games. Bumper car strategy. Um, so ultimately, in looking at this, like on the overall, because I kind of stumbled into even messing with this trade, so I shouldn't probably be doing it, but it's too fun to not do it because, like I said, it's a bumper car. All right, so looking at this on the daily, looks like up pretty much, right? Like you can see, oh, I'm doing it here. So you can see where it's kind of going up. This could be probably a retracement and then continue up. But if you look overall, you really can't know that for sure. You know what I mean? It does appear like on that weekly uh, chart, but you can see that it has gone down, 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 since May of 22. It has just kind of been working its way down, down, down. And there's these spikes that kind of come up and whatnot. So, what is this right now? I don't know. At this point here, it did go above that, so you could look for this kind of build to happen here. So I don't know. I mean, I can't call it, as they say. And so what I'm doing, as I look at it on the daily, it's the same. I mean, when you break it out, again, is this the spot where it goes up, or do we continue that down trend? Because this has happened before, where it's come up and then continued on down. Matter of fact, there again, now this up, but is this a continuation of that up? I don't know. So what I have done is, and I am going to stick with this. Um, Looking at it on the hour, with these are my 4 hour zones that are drawn there. Um, and on, okay, that's not a 4 hour zone because this is the 4 hour chart, and these are 4 hour zones. So maybe that would actually be a little wider. Um, and this here comes across. It's kind of gotten wiped out. That's why I'm kind of like, I don't know on that one, uh, which is kind of why I'm in a, I don't, which is why I'm making this play that I'm making, which if you are looking at it, you can see what I've already put in there. But if you go for down a little bit closer to an hour, then I can see that turnaround. But once again, it was just a straight drop. It didn't do some of these other things that you kind of look for, which did not pan out previously anyway. Like I said, this came down, it started to come back up, and then you see that it just kind of sideways before going down again. Same thing over here. It did come up over where it met where it had dropped down into here, but once it got back up there, it just kind of went ahead and petered out again. So I don't know what I'm looking at right here, but what I have done is price right this minute, like it's closed right now, so it's going to open back up here in 10 hours. I think that's what the thing said. Yeah. So, market opens in 10 hours and 37 minutes. So, what I'm going to do is I've got this buy stop thing. Again, this is bumper cars, and this was in my class the other day that I understood what the meaning of the buy stop is. So, I'm playing with it, right? So, already price got up here as a high. And what I've done is put a buy stop in there so that if it reaches that price again, then I'm going to go ahead and buy it with this whole thing as my new, what's that called? As my new stop, or as my stop loss. So that will be down here. So that will be quite a big thing. That ends up being $150 risk to get here. But if it does that, then we're talking about, again, I don't know what that's going to mean, because at that point it will be, uh, if it, well, wait a second. I've got two trades here, so let me explain what I'm doing here. Okay, so we're already looking at real world scenario down. All the forces are pushing down, right? With the exception of on that monthly, or not even on the monthly, right? Like everywhere you look, it looks to me like we're in this turnaround phase, right? It looks like this could be the turnaround phase. That's on the monthly, on the weekly. Once again, marched up, it's been down, down, down. It's come down only because this is kind of like, that is the all-time low, right? And then it has started to move up. Again, that's on the weekly. So I'm just watching it and thinking, man, if it wants to make that back up, it would be a great catch. So here I am again, and I forgot, because I'm looking at this downward pressure, right? So my first play, and this is why I say it's like bumper cars, because I don't know that you would do this in real money or not. Um, but I'm figuring it like this: if indeed that's going down, it's got to retrace and then continue down, or there's a likelihood for it to do so. So for the cost of $37, I'm into that trade there, with it possibly continuing on down for 187, right? So I'm just saying, if indeed that's the spot where it's going to turn around, and that's what I'm trading on, right? Is that if that is the spot for that $37 would net, that's what, 5 to 1 if it were to come down there. I mean, it could bounce and not do that too. I mean, I have to watch that and make decisions after that. But right off the bat, I'm looking at that. And if I were to look at that just as a straight 1 to 1, which would not be foolish, right? I mean, if I just came in here and instead of 1 to 1, if I did there, that's about, there's 2 to 1. Okay, so that's 37 to 75, and then I can always manage it down further if that's where it goes. Because I think it would. Like if it turns around, then I'm thinking that we're breaking this zone, which was a 4 hour zone. Um, that would just, it's done. I mean, it's nearly done already because it had that wick through it, right? So that that's my kind of thought process, is that it drops all the way down to there before again needing to, or possibly having that rally. I mean, there's several places where it could happen. Um, that's what I did with my markups, my markups, all these places. So if that happened, if it turned around, boom, boom, I could profit there and kind of ride that wave, as it were. If I stop out on that, hit that $37, that thin slice. If it goes through that thin slice, then I'm into this buy here that I was talking about earlier prematurely, because in order to get there, I will have stopped this one out, and I will then be entering into this one. If it stops me out and goes up, that would be 2 more ticks. Then I would look at that as, on this daily candle, where did I get that buy stop? I put that buy stop in on the 15-minute candle that has already approached that, but has since put us in a sideways angle. And that's what I'm kind of doing the double, kind of trying to ride to. I'm I'm hedging myself, I guess it would be called, because what I'm doing is I'm saying if we are indeed shorting or if we are indeed going down from here, we're going to possibly, because of this little turn in here and this activity here, possibly tap that one more time before going on down. In which case, I will take that ride and hopefully make it. I mean, if it doesn't spike right through from there to there and just give me that 75, then I will look for it to come on down. Again, if it cuts through that zone, that little 4 hour zone there, that's kind of it's also a 15-minute zone. I mean, I'm thinking it's an hour zone, or no, an hour it doesn't even show up. So I didn't mark that properly. That's what happened. All right. So this is a 15-minute zone. So it's been my kind of experience as I'm looking at it and thinking about it, that those 15 minutes only work like in that if you're right there at the spot where it's getting ready to happen. Otherwise, I mean, because I'm looking at this and I'm seeing these wicks, all of these wicks as a push down. So there is that happening right there, so that would push on down. If it's exhausted, which it might be because it's wicked into it twice there at that point, 3 times if you count that beginning there, then you're, if it has exhausted everything there and price will indeed move on through it and go on up, then yeah, that's where I'm grab that thing. That's where I will look to double that risk. I can't point with my hands, expect you to see that. Double that risk from here to here being doubled up. Right, you see it on that blue bar over there. That that um that's the possibility that I'm looking for. And then who knows? Because at that point, right, when you start looking at it from a larger time scale, I don't want to use the words due, but there's some greater probabilities for a lot of different things to happen. Because again, when you're looking at that on that daily, it came down and there's room for it to move back up. But that coming down was not a new thing. It had gone down much without going back up. It is not a foregone conclusion, which is why I did both sides of it. So I got a little one there, and then if that doesn't cut in there, I could lose both of them, quite honestly. I mean, to go up a little bit higher and then come all the way back down. So have to be prepared for that, which is why I made that one a very small. That first one there is only 37 for that reason. And then looking at this other one, it's $150 risk on it, with that 1-to-1 being kind of where it's just kind of ranging into that, where it's already been ranging. So if it goes up there and continues to range in there, but if at that point I'm able to manage that up, my potential is another, that would be about another 150, because that's another similar move up. So I don't know. we will see what the week is for. That's what the day moving forward is. Now, let me get back to what I was supposed to be doing, and I got caught up doing this because I was looking at different trades when I was supposed to be going through my morning markups and simply getting this done for the coming week and to kind of have an idea. And I've already done weeks and days. Yeah. So I've already done weeks and days down that far, at least some days. So we'll see. And of course, I'm not her. Okay. So week. Yeah, I don't know. What I really want to call. I want to call that. Because there was a move. This caused that move right there. But I'm looking for green candles, and I'm kind of blocked from that green candle. So maybe I don't call it, and I just keep going looking for that green candle. I'm blocked from that green candle, and here is the green candle that I actually catch a piece of right there, and that gives me this area as a weekly zone. Of course, here. And the thing with all of these indices is that they're at the top of their. This ends up being like this what a man calls a standalone zone, because this zone here was created by this one. This is the standalone. That's the standalone. I mean, that's weekly. I'm just gonna go because I've got all of that to do. So I'm gonna just crunch down weekly because that's why keep getting distracted. So yeah, okay. So I've already done some of this, so I'll just stick with it weekly. And then if I'm calling that block, I'm gonna block all that in there. This gets me down here, and there's these little. You see, coming on down. And I like to do these now because my thought is that at some point, as you can see, I'm reaching back in time to find them. So, like, this is back to November of 23. But at some point, if price were to come way down on here and I needed to measure it against using my strategies, right, of what I'm calling these zones, then I would need to identify these spaces at that point. And at that point, I just assume, let's see, that was not, see, and So that just, it names it, or that puts it in there, because at some point in the future, that's what I was trying to say. At some point in the future, if time gets way out here, price gets way, keeps going up, 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 and we're going all into the future. We're just not going to keep going too far into the future. But so I get way out here, I'm gonna have to come back here and figure out where all these things come from. See, this one's from August of earlier this year, and this already is pushed out to January 25. So here in a month and a half, 2, 3 months, when I'm looking, I'll be able to just pull that instead of having to go all the way back to find it. That's all I'm trying to do. It's unlikely that I'm going to need to go back to October 22. Hope the market doesn't come way back down there, but there are times when it goes up to come back down before it goes up. This is part of the circle of life, the waves of the market. So that's what I'm trying to set myself up for the future to be able to know where I'm at on those. So that's why I'm doing it week to week. Weekly. These things are not getting. Okay. Get hooked on the dot where they're supposed to. I mean, if you've got a theory that you're working with, this makes no sense to not execute it according to the theory so that you can then judge the theory. That's like kind of the whole thing that I'm doing here, is like working with the thought, the idea, right, that these zones are important. And I'm not going into why and how, because the idea that these zones are important because this is where decisions were made, and you can see that in the flattening of the arch, right, where it kind of it stops. It's moving back and forth. Are we going up? Or are we going down? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, we're going up. Shoo, 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 shoo. And so I judged those spots where it took off like that, and it did so in a 2-to-1 kind of way. So like here, it took off. This is being called the area, right? So you can see that it doubled that area to get on up there before it kind of got stalled out again. I mean, you could call this a stalling here too, but then you'd have to conclude this would make it the whole thing. So, yeah. And then like here, again, I'm going to go ahead and use this little area here. And I'm using that area there. And because once again, it doubled that going up. Once it took off, it said shoo, and just went up, just went up, just went up. See that? Now that little bottoming tail thing there at the end of that week kind of gives me the thought that, man, if this thing wants to start going up, this is where one of my, like, there's more to the strategy, but like those are good things. Those are good little signs at that bottoming tail, because there's a lot of pressure right there. So if it starts immediately right there, then it's ready to keep on going. But that's kind of the same thing that I was doing on that other one, where I was showing where it's come down and then it's starting to come back up. Is it gonna make it back up there? And that's what you're judging as you're doing that. And we'll kind of see if I can answer questions. I don't have any questions because ain't nobody watching. But if you're watching in the past or in the future, watching this, then hopefully you're watching me do this successfully on some status, and there's enough people watching that they actually do, that there are comments to be pay attention to. So thanks for coming back and looking at these old times. Uh, so I did gold weekly, yeah. And now, yeah, see, once again, like I said, that's that judging. Is it going to do it or not? And these things look a lot alike. You may notice that is copper, which is looking a little like nothing. I thought it looked like something, but maybe it's something I'm thinking of another one that I was looking at. But in any case, here we are still doing weeklies on this now. On this one, I'm going to look at some above the top stuff too. There's already a daily that I've done there. So if I come at that on that weekly, controls will below the screen. So that's something over weekly zone. Weekly, yeah. And then I'm gonna go here. And then there is a little drop base. Rally. Okay, you see a drop base and then a rally. The base very small. Just that one candle. All right. So I'm gonna do that one on weekly. On weekly. Okay. I'm gonna include that whole thing. I'm gonna do that. And the reason I say the whole thing because I was about to come down here and go, okay, what's off of this? Do I just take this candle itself, which I guess I could? But then I'm thinking, well, I want to at least include the red that it came from, which, oh, wait a second, that includes all of this, which was indeed a bunch of indecision. So we'll just consider it all, thinking that if it comes down to it, this lower part would be a good refined area to get into it. Again, refining meaning that, this is going to cost, just round numbers, this is going to cost 200 worth of risk for it to move from here to here. And you could cut that in half by or a little less than half by uh, keeping, just saying, okay, I'm going to go with that candle. Like the body of that candle is about halfway, right? Then you would just kind of go, okay, boom, expecting that all that activity, all of this activity is probably cleared out orders so that this is what's left. Because I kind of look at this as a big old table with the orders on it. Uh, the orders being, I'll buy them at this price. And so there's just a stack of orders for this price. But then when the price moves up, those orders are left sitting there waiting. And it's just kind of the theory that's involved. Obviously, it's a theory because they fall through here to get here. Does that mean there was him here and nothing was there? It's all whether you're guessing. It's all you're doing. You're guessing, right? Because what you're doing is you're saying, um, so much of it. There's so much running through my head, right? So what you're saying is that there's a thing going on right now. There's a transaction going on, and you see, this is how I envision it, right? You see someone making a deal for this price, and you go, man, that's a good deal. I want that deal. I mean, that's a better deal. I tell you what, I'll give you he's giving you $1. I'll give you $1 and a penny. And then he looks at that guy, and that guy says, "Nah, I said $1." And so then he goes, "Okay, I'm gonna go start selling to this guy." So now I'm getting them for that $1 and a penny, and then somebody else is like $1 too, and it just the price goes up. So he's no longer selling them for that dollar, although this guy has said, "I'll buy them for $1," and I've said $1.01. So as the price goes up, if I'm not willing to go up, if that guy down there is not willing to go up, then the price just goes up. But at some point, it comes back down to that same price area. And if that guy is still sitting there on the table with his order, right? Like this. Here's my orders. Okay, look. Here's my positions. I have one trade that is active right this minute. Where am I at? I'm on MNG. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to that. I'm talking and trying to teach myself or check myself. So I have one trade right now. That's this one right here. That's the one that just pops blue is the one trade. And if I click it, then there's the trade itself, right? There's the chart with that trade on it, and it shows you that I got into the trade at this price, that I'm gonna get out when it gets down here. Right now the price is actually going up here, and I'm waiting for it to get up here. I can move this at this point and do all of that. Okay, that's the one trade that I am in. But if you look where it says orders, I have 20 orders. Well, let's go look at what those are. And if I pull this up to where I can see all those orders as a page, then here's that coin that we were looking at earlier where I did the whole thing where I said, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to do a sell, right? I said, I'm going to do a sell here. That is a working order. It is on the books. It's on the table. Remember I said that table? And so right now I have said I will sell that at this price. Not the price it's at right now, but when it gets to this price, that's my limit. I will sell it right there. Well, as soon as I do that, these orders, which are inactive now, will become active and will be working, because this will no longer be an order that's working. It will be a position. And then these will be orders that are working, waiting for that price to get to either this for stop loss or this to take profit. Okay. So what I'm trying to tell you, going back to what I was talking about with the order flow, right, is that there's orders on the table. You see, I have orders on the table. They're not actively doing anything right now except sitting there waiting for price to come to me. Similarly, when I go back to where I was doing, since that's how I ended up in this conversation. Similarly, when we are looking at these prices moving up and down, and that we're drawing this table here saying this is where these folks were making that decision, and then the price went away from there. When the price went away from there, my hope is that there was some people sitting down there going like, no, I'm not chasing after that, man. They're just like me. They're saying, I'll buy it when you get back here. If you come back to me, I'll take you up on that. I said $1, I'll give you $1 for it. You go ahead, run all around the neighborhood. If you find people to buy it, you do that. And when you get it up here to this price up here, that one or two that I bought down here, I will now sell. And guess what? I made all that profit. And then I'll just wait for that price to come back down. And when that price comes back down and gets to my table, there's that guy. Here's my spot. And I'm going to get in there. And it may continue down before it hits his spot and turns back around. That's my hope, because I'm thinking of him, the big table, as the big guy, the big investor, the guy who's sitting there and going like, "I'll buy them for $1. I'll take 100,000 of them." And then by the time he gets that counting, because you can't just buy 100,000, he's like, got to transaction, whatever that ends up being, thousands, ones, whatever it is. It's enough of a delay that the price can move before that transaction is fully complete. So if you look back at the old movies, like how Trading Places continually goes through my mind, and then I learned this just earlier this year, like in the scenes where they're in the thing, and the guy's sitting there, and he's got a pencil behind his ear, and he's going, and he's like, ah, he's out there screaming at the people, and they're all in that pit and running. They're talking to each other in a language, right? That guy's coming out. And by the fact that he's who he is, everybody knows he's Mr. Corn, and that he has contracts for corn that he's, we'll say, selling. So then what he does is he comes out and he says, I've got four, actually, I've got four to sell. So he's pushing them out, and he'll call that person out who says they want it, because somebody else will be like, I got those four. So now that guy sits there, makes note of that, writes it down, right? So that guy's got four. And then by the time he gets to the next guy, the price is going up. So now we're selling that for this price, it's a little bit more. And so we're continuing to move that. But he's got these orders in his pocket to take back to the table. Imagine, if you will, because all this happens electronically now. But you got somebody who's sitting back at the table, he takes that money, takes those orders to, and says, hey, that guy bought them at this price, that guy bought them at this price, that guy bought them at this price, right? That's all happening. And then that all gets filtered into the system, and the prices are all fluctuating. That's why the price is continually fluctuating, because you're looking up at the board and you're seeing that, man, all this yelling and screaming that we're doing, I bought 10 and he bought 10 and he sold, and yada, 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 has affected the overall price. So now, oh, whoa, it's way down. I'll buy even more. Or I need to get rid of these ones I got because, man, that price is way up there. Let me start selling them. So that kind of stuff is going on. Only now it's expanded to millions of people, and we get to watch it on the screen. So you have to visualize the concept, to understand the concept, to be able to manipulate the concept, to to work, to use it. So you build a table that you think is there, because you don't know where, right? Because there's a lot of people screaming on the floor. I don't know how many he sold exactly. I mean, I know I heard that guy and that guy and that guy, so I know he sold at least 12. Then maybe, I don't know. And then these other people were selling, and I was trying to sell my own positions, right? And that's just one. That's just corn. Not to mention the cows and the soybeans, and now you got these indices, and lumber and timber, and there's different strikes of everything. There's types of corn and types of, you know what I mean? And so there's all these different markets, and you're watching them. So you have to conceptualize all this stuff. So this table that I'm calling a table is my table versus his table in my thought process. So I mean, that's not really the right way to even describe it, because it's the table that I'm expecting to be there, and that if it just goes through it, then it wasn't there. So it's not my table. Those are not my orders. I mean, if I make the if I place the order, then it's my order. But I'm deciding whether or not to do that based on where I think that price is going to turn around, because those folks who do those big orders put them out there and they wait. The Warren Buffetts, right? Like I watched Warren Buffett a couple weeks ago talking about That was maybe a month or so ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, but he got rid of something like 1 million shares of Apple, I believe. But he didn't do it like in a day. He talked about having to roll that out, because if he goes to sell 1 million shares, the price is going to go down and he won't get as much money for it. So he has to sell a few at this price, wait for the price to get back up, and then sell some more. Because as soon as he starts selling them, as soon as he puts 100,000 shares on the market, there's all kinds of people going like, "Oh my God, Warren Buffett's selling Apple. Let me decide whether I want to sell Apple too," right? But there's also people that don't know what's going on. They're just seeing that the price has suddenly there's a greater supply, so it's pushed the price back down until such time as those people rush to buy or whatever, and then you continue to wait for it to come back up and then do the same thing, and that's how you get rid of 1 million shares. And we have to be able to kind of sense what's going on when nobody's going to tell you what's going on, because that's the whole point. He can't tell you what's going on, because if he told you that he was trying to sell 1 million shares, the price would go way down here, like beyond, like the line would go way down here, and he'd be shooting himself in the foot, and then nobody would call him the Wizard of Wall Street anymore, or the whatever they call it, Prophet of Omaha, or whatever they call him. They would stop that. They'd be like, that guy's a knucklehead. So he does it in a smart way. And I don't got 1 million shares to sell, so I gotta watch what he's doing, or buy for that matter. So I just gotta watch and try to figure out how to figure out what they're doing and get in with them. A guy that sold me on the idea of this concept described it as a shark that attacks. And there are these little fish that sharks don't bother with, but they ride with the sharks. Because when the shark comes through and eats what it's going to eat, comes through and like, rawr, takes that big old bite, it leaves a whole bunch of carcass just dropping and falling, and then these little fish are able to just fit. And that's where I'm trying to step in and be like, when these markets makers, when these big fellas come through and do their thing, if I can just figure out where they're doing it, if it's here, if I can get in here right before it, I can ride with them. And that's all I'm trying to do. So back to what I was doing, marking up the weeklies. So let me do that. And yeah, weekly. See, it is indeed subjective. Like, you're just kind of like, here's that move, because you're doing the same thing on both sides, like where it went down and where it went up. So on this thing here where it went down, I'm looking again, where did it go down, and really, like, what was the move that it was working against, or the you know this is where the buyers were. Clearly that's a green candle, and they were all in here right before that thing took off, and you can see that that's a pretty good sized move that it went down. So I'm just going to count it. Probably going to go on up here too and take this. That keeps happening. All right. So it's actually this one, that one. So that's there. Pull it all up to to today and beyond. Nope. Come back to you when I do the dailies. Weekly, weekly, weekly. And I'm doing this differently than my coaches and stuff, and they do these things where they use these lines that mark it all the way to the end, and we need to keep coming back. But it's going to do that not by color. I like to do it by color so I can know that this I got from a weekly, so that even if I'm down here looking at this thing on an hourly chart, now if I get it big enough to where I can see that hourly chart, I'm not even going to see that weekly, right? I'm not really worried about that weekly thing, whatever that weekly thing was happening, because this is the cool thing. The structure still maintains, like those same kind of formations occur, and you're doing the same kind of things. Looking at the red go down and come back up. You're doing all of that in the same within the context that at some point you're going to end up here, right? And you're going to just be boom, 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 boom. And you're going to go, oh, hey, there's something up here that I need to be aware of, which is that on a weekly context, some things were happening. And sure enough, they happened. Trust the process. I don't know what my man said is. It is because it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, I will continue to research and find out the whys and the wherefores, because that is my nature. But I have to be accepting of the fact that it is what it is, because you can see time and time again, like I don't need this one because it's already done. So I don't need to do this. So I want to show you something. Look at that. There's that deal. Do you see it already? Do you already see it? Do you see it already? Look, boom! It pushed it down. I don't need to do that one because it's already done. Like it already did it. But I'll leave that there because, I mean, it did its work there, but this is where it could turn around again. And that's what you got to be looking at. It's like, okay, this is happening, but it's happening within these different contexts, right? Because once again, if you remember earlier, I was talking about once we get above, like here we are, we're touching that same space with that, like where the body closed, right? It did not quite get above where it took off from, where this zone began right there, or where that drop began right there. So it still has not yet achieved that which would allow it to break out and move on up, but not really, because it has always had trouble right there. Not always, but at least as far back as April of 23. And we can see that that was happening. And that gets us all the way back to July of 22. And then I'll pull that all up here to the current date, because who knows where we're going to end up being. See, and then I'll know that when I get to that point where I will see it and be able to roll it back at least to this point, so that when it comes time in a couple weeks or months, I'm not now looking to find out where this stuff is. I mean, at some point, I got to stop this, but I'm doing it again. Yeah, because at some point, that's not necessary. But they're not fully necessary. And I ain't hating on it because I know that it's going to be helpful to me down the road. Because I've only done weekly. I haven't done daily, 4 hour and an hour, because that's what I need to do. is have all of that on a regular or timely basis. So because this is weekly, I'm gonna go ahead and take this. Ordinarily, I don't feel like I want this particular thing because I'm looking down into the right or left rather and looking for those big moves. This was a single move, but because this is a week, that's 5 days of action going upward. So I don't want to just ignore it just because it's a single candle. But I do want to be aware that that's what I'm working on. And again, just all kinds of choppy. And I'm gonna this is back to October 23, and I feel like these are some all-time lows. Yeah, so that's gonna be all right. Just keep on moving now. These are gonna be the currencies, and they're a lot more choppy, as it were. So that one's already got some stuff going on at that zone, and I don't know why is that called weekly. I don't feel like that's right. Mm-mm. That's a monthly zone, sorta. I'm not even sure how that's. And that's the one thing is you can when you put these things on, you can put stuff on um, in one way, and it will go on as a sorry, it will go on wherever it goes, and then when you get to a different time zone, you find out, oh, that's not quite as tight as it was, as it appeared. So I'm gonna do this as my zone. I don't. This is like I said, it's subjective. I'm just trying to include because that's kind of an indecision kind of candle. And the reason it's an indecision kind of candle, in case you can't see it, you might see it already, is that it's that spot where those wicks, as I said earlier, represent buyers or sellers, depending on which side you're on. If it's above, it's sellers. If it's below, it's buyers pushing it up or down. And that's where something is happening. And when you see something like this, you see where it was mostly, yes, pushing downward, which ultimately carried the day, but that push up was pretty significant and did not give you a situation where you had, because this means that at some point there was a try to go up here and then it was rejected, pushed back down, but not all the way down before they again pushed back. And then ultimately at the end of that period, that looks like that was a month, then it went ahead and continued down. So I want to go ahead and use that just because, again, it's subjective and I am the one subjecting it. So, uh, let me go here. Market. Market for the week. And then down below, I got you already. Why is that down like that? I don't even know. Oh, that's a month, not week. I just said that that's not a week. It's a month, which is that the one I did? Yes. So I want that to be 1 month. Mhm. Thank you too. That's a month. That's a month. All right. Now, if I do go week, and there is value in this, right? Because you see that that month is so wide, but if you look at it, I was gonna say it's made up of weekly zones, but really that's not quite the way I want to do it because I want that the green that was behind the red, which then makes this whole thing, and I'm just not trying to make that my zone. Oh, I was doing. Me and my wife do puzzles in the morning, but I get up super early, so I can't trade them or send them to her as early as I would have because I was still, um, well, she was still asleep when I did the puzzle earlier, and I have not done the other puzzles, so I'll do those later and keep on doing what I'm doing here, which is marking this down on the weekly, which I've already done some, and I'm gonna leave that there because I really just don't see anything incredibly useful on that front to me right after that. And I don't know. Those I think must have been there for me to measure something, but I don't know what. So here we are on the weekly. Get this one. It's good enough to see. And she's sailing through them puzzles. Do you do? This is why it's good to do this now, cause and to limit myself to my list here. I think because this gives me a bunch of currencies that I'll be able to look at. A couple of commodities. That's light crude oil. That's natural gas. That's copper, gold, and then some indices to look at. And there's others that we look at in our classes. You know, with futures, there's like I said earlier, there's corn, lumber, soybeans. That's lumber. There's one that's timber, which I don't know what the difference is, but there's silver, there's platinum, there's so many different things. And then, of course, there's a million and one stocks. So I try to keep myself, limit these, limit myself to what is this? This is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I can't even count, and I think it's like 15 or 16, which a lot. You see how long it's taking me to get through here, but this is my hope anyway is that doing this now will give me peace of mind later when I have to go through this on the daily basis. And I mean, I do have to go through it on a daily basis because there we are. Yeah, because that's what you're doing. You're trying to figure out where it's at today. You know, what has price done? Because I'm going to be able to look at this and say, okay, it was doing this then. Where is it now? I think it's going to do this based on that. And then I'll be able to check those hypotheses. But it's very helpful doing these exercises here, doing this because one thing is I just keep seeing that, yeah, it's that is a zone that the price hit and went away from. So that it becomes, if I can get those, right, even though this is my risk, I'm risking, let's say, on something like this particular one, right, the risk is going to be here, right? So that right there, this is the pound, and this is a weekly, right? So I'll need to dig down deeper because this is if you got more money that you want to do these long something this long, right? But look, let's look at this. Like if you had the wherewithal and the risk tolerance, right, to set that on the table, $1,300. After you looked at this and you see that it's going to come back here, and when you can see like time over time, time after time, that's how it happens. Like here, you can see where you might have thought that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. So it doesn't always happen. Like here, you might have expected that there would be a turnaround right there, but it didn't happen that way. It doesn't every single time happen. Here, it looks like like I might have called this a spot and then would have thought it's happening, and it didn't. So it's a risk. But look at the 1,300 risk that you're putting here. And again, if you can further define it by going in here and looking at this, this is likely to be something where you could have made a decision that you wanted to refine that risk somehow, or when you break it down to a smaller time zone or time frame, then you start to see smaller spots within there that you could have gone, like with this particular one right here. Uh, so this would be the zone that I would have taken on this particular trade, right? If I had taken this trade right here, looking at price from here and going like, boom, I set this up. That's a $1,300 risk I got to take here. But if I then watched it go complete straight up, like I mean, it didn't come all the way back down to me at any point, and I could have, and frankly, probably would only now be getting stopped out on it because I would have watched it go up and then would have taken that stop loss from here and moved it up. Once I could see that structure had formed right here, it would have taken me a week or two. I would have just had to sit on it and been like, oh, it looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do, but I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, this candle tells me that it opened here and closed here. And those were the highest points and the lowest points, right? So since it opened here, we can assume, and also since that's a red candle, we can probably go, man, it probably went down, continued down for a second before it turned around. When it turned around, it kind of went on up. And at some point, I could have said, I'm going to raise this stop loss to where I won't lose any money on this trade. I'll just have not made anything if it comes back down here. But at that point, it's already up here. And then when it gets up here, I can say, well, I'm going to raise it to here because it's showing me some structure. Like price has said, I'm going here, and then said, nah, I'm going up. So now I'm going to wait here in case it comes back. See, I formed a zone. See that? I drew the zone out there. I could have drew one here too. But I drew a zone here and said, I'm going to stop underneath that zone. So give that price a chance to bounce in there and go on up. If it comes all the way back down, then I would have taken my money right there. But then it would have gone on up. Then it would have gone. And if I had waited and saw it go back up above that structure, then I would have set it in there at that structure. It's easy to say this now because I can see the line in front of me, right? But then with that process, if I can maintain that process, then that's exactly what I would do, is move that up. And then I would catch the next structure point, which would be right here. And I might, at this point, be at risk of falling down, right? Or if at some point I had said, well, this is here. Well, see, I wouldn't have gone here because this already would have shown me that wick. So I would not have gone beyond that wick. So I would have been right there waiting for it. So I would be in limbo right now. But where would I be in limbo at right now? I would be in limbo with a guaranteed profit of 3,800 on that risk of 13. And if I were to just like be like, well, I'm just going to close it out today, right now, wherever it is, it would be at 4,300. Because you can see that structure moving up and you can follow along with it. I'm not going to make a trade. That's not what I'm doing right now, because I'll have to narrow that down in. But if I was well heeled, right, like if I had fat pockets like that, then I could do that. I could just say, I'll make that trade right there and just wait for it to come back to me. If it comes back to me, I'll get it. If I had done that here, boom, it would have been paying off. If I had done the same thing here, right, if I had taken that zone, boom, it would have paid off. And I would have been on the way up. And this one would have been a smaller risk, because I would have just done that with, again, kind of an understanding that anything could happen. But now with a $900 risk, I would have, again, using the same mentality of letting it rise before it gets up to a certain point, and then going ahead and saying there's some structure, I will lock it back in, moving my stop loss, meaning, right, moving this stop loss to here, because guess what? That's where prices moved up here. So now I'm going to just, like, at that point. So at what point would I be 1-to-1? Right here, right? Or a little under that. So if I am to use a strategy where I get to the 1-to-1 point, and instead of just closing out that trade, because I'm paper trading, I can only do one action at a time, actual trade at a time. Like in reality, see, there's a number there, so that's how many contracts you're ordering. So you could buy 2 contracts and just close one, sell one of those contracts at this point and another one at this point, so that one would pay for the other, as it were. To manipulate the system to mimic that, I can take my position and set it up. this is where I want to be, where or make a move at that 1 to 1. So if I go ahead and take profit a little higher, when it gets to that 1 to 1 position, then I can say to myself, okay, I'm not going to take my profit right here, but I'm going to lock it to where the worst thing that can happen is no trade. Worst thing that can happen is I don't get any money on the trade. I won't lose anything, right? I will have gone all the way up here to 2,900, and then if it comes back down, it drops. Well, at that point, I was saying that this was my what you call it? Where'd you go? Yeah, I lost my. Yeah, I was saying this was my stop loss. So if that was my stop loss, that 987. So I would have, when I got here to that point, I would have raised that up so it would be zero on the trade, and I would have had $1,000 that I might have lost again if I didn't take it right there off the table. But then it would have risen up to, that's almost 3,000 at that point. And when it rose up here, so it would have been more than that at that point, then I would have rose my stop loss to here, right? Freezing it in at a $943 profit if it drops down. And then I would have sat there and watched it. Hopefully not watch it because it's not good for the stress. But I would have waited for it to come all the way, get close, and go. And then once it got up there, I would have moved my stop profit or stop here because once again, there's a structure spot, a zone that I have been able to that has created itself. I didn't create it, I just identified it. So now I'm going to move that stop up there and I'm going to lock myself in at 1,300. And then I'm going to do this again. And once again, I'm going to bring that stop loss rather, up here and lock it in underneath that wick and find myself with 3,200 for sure. And if I just was like, I can't take it anymore, I can just get out with the 38.5 right now, 38.50 right now, and just go close it out. Well, not right now because the market's closed, but Friday afternoon, I could have just closed it out right then and there, which may be the thing to do. Um, in a situation like that, because you don't know what's going to happen over the weekend, and you don't know what's what. But so that's how those maneuver up and down and keep on going. All right, keep it moving. 6B. No, that's a weekend. Yeah, that's a weekend. And I just keep marking them because I don't know when they're going to be necessary. I mean, when that price gets up there, I'm going to need that information again. So I might as well have it. Uh, for now. Call it a day. Call it a day with that. All right. All right. All right, we'll take this one just because. I'm just taking big. Let's make it. Okay. And that's from way back. That's going back to June of 2016. But here's the thing, it is entirely possible, the way currencies work, that could happen again. That policy or news creates a situation and you will need that information, and then I'll be stuck trying to draw it out then. So now it's already there. And nothing else, I'm practicing drawing these zones. And that's all I can do for the moment. All right. And these, there's a wall. Yeah, leave it there. Do, 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 do. Heading for the turnaround. A couple of zones in there I want to mark just to have them. Now, this kind of speaks more to the whole thing. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo, doo-doo. This whole thing too. And then I'm done. Australia. Looks like I already got notes in there. Is there? Swiss French. Man, it's kind of crazy. This whole, what do you call it? This whole thing with, hey, at least he put up an episode, so that's good. Yeah, this cat I've been following on here on YouTube, Calvin, the new trader, the beginning trader, Forex Beginners podcast. He's living in Florida and these hurricanes, so I was worried about my brother. But if he put out an episode today, then I'm hoping that that means he made it through and everything's okay. So that's good. Um, see, where am I at? Now, some I don't always go up to the red candle. All right, come on, baby. I think that's everything. No, no. Swiss Frank's be moving up. There is a lot beneath it. You know what I mean? I don't want to use all of that obviously as a base, and then this is that to that. Yeah, it's according to the now. Give it away now. Yeah, maybe that. And that is what is just crazy, amazing to me that I don't know what it is, but I knew it was there. I mean, I see the two. I go like, this is there. So there's something here doing that. Where is it? And sure enough, there it is. I mean, you don't go across there and run into this. It just, it just works. As my man said, it is what it is, and that's it. It works. So you can, you know, I can sit here and not accept that, or I can take that for what it is and operate with the understanding that while I don't understand the physics of, I don't understand all of the physics involved in driving, but I take the time to apply the gas, brakes, the amount of speed, and how much tension, how firmly I hold the wheel, all of those things. I make these adjustments with the understanding that the things that I'm doing will have an effect on those laws of physics that I don't quite understand enough to explain to you. But I do know the sweet spot when I'm driving. I know the sweet spot for when to make that turn. so that I can stay away from that other vehicle, so that I can swoop in and out, so that I can get into my parking spot, so that I can make that turn and not go flying off the side of the road because of the centrifugal force. There are things that we do that if you take the time to get it, you get it. And that's what I don't know who I'm justifying myself to. Very clear, 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 clear. Okay. And you can just see it one after the other. Do I need one more? Yeah. There it goes. Nothing else. Clear back to May to March. Right on the right phone, right phone. Alright. Here. That's how we do. Sleeping on me. Isn't that crazy? I don't know where it is, but it's back there. And that's clear back to '03. That is 20 years ago. And yet, that is just insane. But if you can see it, why not work with it? Huh. And this is just weekly. Man. Alright. It'll be much easier on my days. As my days come to me because I won't have to fight this from so far back. I won't have to do this next week and nope. Yeah, here's one that did come into, and chances are, if you break that down into days, you'll find the structure very similar to this one, and that may be on the agenda, but I don't think it is for this particular deal because damn it. Seriously, there's and because we're so far back, I'm probably not gonna have to. I'm not gonna break that down into a daytime. We all know just we got a couple more to go. Yeah, that's as far back as I'm gonna go with that because that just gives me well, really only one more because that's a 6JZ, which is a specific contract for the one I already did. Man, let's look at that thing to determine what to do. Okay. Oh! Okay, so this one's already done a bunch too. Months and weeks. Okay, right on. So I am so tempted to take a break right now because I still got to do daily and 4 hour. Then I'll be done, the ready for action. So I will do that. I'm gonna take a break and I'll maybe come back on live to do it. Yes, and that